Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller, the podcast. These episodes were originally aired on Brookings Radio. Now they're on the net for you.
Hey, if you want to hear anything special on the show, reach out to us on Facebook. We're always looking for new content. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. There's nothing wrong with being a beer geek or a craft beer aficionado. However, those of us who love craft beer need to be careful of crossing over into the realm of beer snob. Don't be a beer snob. Seth Cook of Wooden Legs Brewing in Brookings says beer snobbery is not pleasant.
Beer geek is a term that we hear quite commonly at the bar, and we probably embrace that moniker. But that is not a far variation from a beer snob.
Which you don't want to be.
And it's a slippery slope, so you need to step carefully as you become a beer geek. And maybe we should start by maybe defining some of the snobbery things that are so evident in beer snobs.
First and foremost, don't look your nose down at anybody else's beer.
Right, and that's one of the things that we bring when I bring our staff onto the pub. One of the expectations we say in their first day is we don't talk bad about any other beers. Every beer that's made out there is made with intent, and whether that's the same style or the same purpose or the same intent that we would have, I'm not in the authority to judge or pass judgment on those. I have specific styles that I prefer, and I have specific styles that we like to brew, and we have quality standards that we like to uphold, and I think it's best to be hypercritical of your own because that's what you can affect. And I tell our staff, and I would encourage anybody, is just because you know something is different or changed in a beer, or just because maybe it doesn't fit a certain style, it doesn't benefit the industry for you to pontificate about your own knowledge of it, and it actually is kind of a big turnoff for a lot of people that are in the craft beer scene.
He says their servers have been coached to find the benefits of every beer. It's important to remember that just because you don't like a certain style, it doesn't mean it's not a good beer.
And here's a good example, is that there's a large majority of our industry that absolutely loves over-the-top, hyped up IPAs, and I just never have. And that doesn't mean they're wrong, and I certainly don't think that I'm wrong. So getting too spun up about styles, which style is better, is probably a waste of time. We have a lot to debate at a bar. Let's not bring up which style is better than the other style.
Unless you're sitting around with a bunch of beer geeks, and that's kind of the purpose of what you're doing.
Right.
That is valid.
Right. With permission, this is an okay conversation. Much like every other bar conversation, with permission, these things can be talked about.
More Beer Untapped after this. Welcome back to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller as we discuss something to be avoided, becoming a beer snob. One big thing to avoid: don't impose your tastes on someone else.
That's where the fine line kind of comes about, because as a really good craft beer disciple or advocate, you're always wanting to share. Very often, as a craft beer geek, do you want to say, hey, try this, or try this one thing, or do some of that discovery. But do be self-aware on that. Sometimes the craziest sour that you have hidden away in your cellar is not going to go over at your friend's hockey party or something. It might, but just be aware as a craft beer nerd that there's a time and place for all of this, and be willing, especially when you go to share the craft with people, be willing to cover a lot of different segments, because that's what we've learned, is that there's a lot of different palate profiles and a lot of different drinkers that enjoy the different profiles. Some people are really into, and this isn't a knock, but some people are really into the wheat beers. I don't care for a wheat beer very often, but doesn't mean I dislike them, and so that's a very thin line. So make sure as you go out and introduce your friends and family to this world of craft beer, come with an open mind. There's going to be a lot of different flavor profiles.
Craft beer is fun. Try not to spoil it for someone else who may have different tastes. In my experience, Seth Cook has done a much better job than me at not being a beer snob.
Here's the reason, is that as a craft beer manufacturer and as a craft beer enthusiast, we're tasked with introducing a lot of new people to this entire industry. We really have the opportunity, not only at the pub, but just as friends in a circle, we have the opportunity to introduce new people to hundreds of new experiences in the history of beer and the different styles of beer and the craft beer industry and the legacy that is some of these great breweries. And we really have the ability to unlock a whole new hobby, almost a whole new passion for other people. And we've tried to, and I've tried to help our staff, is always put the best foot forward on that. That's a big charge. We're an advocate for an industry, and that's a very big responsibility to be. And when we opened in Brookings, that was one of our initial tenets, is we wanted to be seen as a true beer advocate.
That's it for this week's show. Until next time, don't be a beer snob. Drink local and drink responsibly. Thank you for listening to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller, originally aired on Brookings radio stations K Country 102.3, The Hawk 107.1, and B93, and now here for your listening enjoyment as well. If you want to hear it live, it's every Wednesday and Saturday on those 3 stations.
And of course, if you're not in the Brookings area to hear it live, you can find us on the internet, on your favorite podcast player. If you like this show, make sure to rate and review, or maybe even tell your friends.